Hey everyone, it's Jared Gold. The following interview was actually never meant to be released to the public. About 2 years ago, I started a journey to interview the world's most successful people on the deepest ideologies behind their success, not the obvious or trite advice of work hard and set goals or things like that, but digging way deeper to understand their internal operating system and even just their fundamental beliefs about what reality is. The intent with these interviews was to turn them into a single consolidated book. For those familiar with Think and Grow Rich, which was actually written in 1937 and is still a timeless book in my opinion, and countless super successful people really recommend it, my aim was to write a more modern day and actionable version of that, to really understand kind of a spiritual science of success, if you will, to uncover it and to curate it. And the tentative title of the book was The Unseen Forces. And so that's why you'll hear that phrase in some of the upcoming interviews here. The reason I'm releasing these interviews now is because I gave myself a time limit of about 2 years to write this book. It doesn't mean the book isn't being written, but I'm pausing it for now to reevaluate. Maybe this information is meant to be conveyed in a way that's different from a book, maybe a way that's bigger and better suited for the information. Who knows? But I've been sitting on these amazing interviews and I really want to get them out there. One important note about the interviews is that it's not like a podcast in the sense of these are hyper-researched specific questions to the interviewees themselves. And there are no pleasantries. I had to resist the pleasantries, and my tone is not warm or inviting or anything like that because I just wanted to make the best use of time that we had on our meeting. These were just recorded on Zoom. So anyways, I really hope you enjoy it, and I welcome any and all feedback. I plan to put these interviews online in a variety of different ways, but to learn more about me, just go to my website, jaredgold, JaredGold.com. I'm really open to all different types of collaboration as well outside of this book. And I feel like one of my main gifts is in interviewing and curating and uncovering what is unseen and unsaid in a variety of different ways. So yeah, check me out. Thanks. I'm super excited to introduce my next guest, Suzy Batiz. Suzy is the founder of Poo-Pourri, which has since rebranded to Pourri, Pourri. It's just this iconic consumer brand. Their branding and advertising is truly best in class. They have this evangelical following and brand recognition. And Suzy has built up this empire. She's one of the wealthiest self-made women in America. And of course, that's impressive in and of itself. But Suzy's ideologies just completely blew me away. One of her core ones is that ideas are alive. Some of you might be familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert, and she talks about this same kind of concept in her book, Big Magic. But Suzy believes that ideas are alive. They're all around us, and they're seeking more life force energy. They're attracted to resonant hosts, as in, if you have a big idea and it really excites you, it brings you this aliveness, you only attracted that idea because you are resonant with it, because you can actually bring that idea to life. So these big crazy ideas that you have that you can't get out of your head, or they won't leave you alone, or you keep seeing little reminders of them, Suzy has 4 signs of resonance. That just means that those ideas are actually for you and that you are the vehicle to bring them into the world. I thought that was a really profound concept that I hadn't really heard anywhere else in such detail. Suzy has a whole way of explaining it and breaking it down. She knows how to use her energy. She knows how to sit and wait for the impulse that comes within her and work with her intuition, work with energy, as opposed to the nonstop kind of hustle and burn yourself out and grind and all that kind of stuff. Because she's been through so many challenging things, she has a variety of different, very grounded practices and processes that can allow us to alchemize these huge challenges or traumas from our past and harvest them and give them this new meaning and turn them into this fuel for us. She has a process of addressing our traumas, our big challenges, in what she calls the Trinity of Transformation, where you first address things on the physical level, and then the psychological level, and then the spiritual level, and then all different other kinds of philosophies that I think are remarkable. Another thing I really love is her view on money and how to approach it, and worthiness, and just cutting through a lot of the confusion and noise around, are we really worthy of what we want? I'm going to let Suzy take it away. From here, I'm really excited to have you all listen.
What are ideas, and where do they come from? How are they alive? And what is the best process to allow ourselves to either receive or generate ideas that are alive for us?
I don't know if I really know what ideas are or where they come from. It's almost like, where does air come from? What I do know is they exist. I became very curious about why some ideas seem to work in business and some didn't. And 7 years, well, maybe 8 years ago, I called Dr. Bruce Lipton and I asked him if ideas are alive. And he asked me why I want to know. And I said, well, I have this theory that the ideas that feel alive to me are the ones that seem to work out. And the ones that I do because it makes sense. Oh, competition has done this, therefore I need to do that. Those sort of logical, business, strategic, left brain decisions seem to not work out so well for me. I had a much better, almost 100% success rate in the ideas I was turned on by. He said that everything is alive and everything's a vibration. Every living thing's a vibration, and every living thing is seeking more life force energy. He taught me about resonance and dissonance. Resonance is when you put two energy waves together and they travel at the same speed and the same wavelength. Those two together create more energy together than they do apart. So not 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million, depending on the level of resonance that you put together. Dissonance is when you put two energy waves together that aren't alike. They're not the same wavelength, they're not the same pattern. You put those two together, those two create less energy together than they did apart. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 = 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. Those two together have less energy than they even did apart. So you have less energy. When people say things like, this job is killing me, this relationship is killing me, there is a level of truth to that based on what I know about resonance and dissonance. What's happening is they are actually living in less life force energy than they had if they were to be out of that situation or the place. I recently moved to California part-time because of dissonance. I can't be in big cities. I need nature. I need ground. It's amazing. All these ideas started coming in. People say I can't come up with any ideas, and I believe that's because they're probably in a state of dissonance. They're not aware that they're in dissonance. They're just chugging along and they don't have the space. Once you have the space, when you go back to what Dr. Lipton said, he said, every living thing is seeking more life force energy. Right there. That's all you need to know. So what happens is this alive idea that is alive, it's this energetic something that's out there. It could be an entity, who knows what it is, but it is looking for the perfect host so that it can continue living and express in the world. There's an old story. Michael Jackson would say if he got an idea in the middle of the night, he would get up and go write it down because Prince would get it if he didn't catch it. You've heard the same story from Elizabeth Gilbert. That thing that we're calling an idea is looking to live. Here's the most important part of this that turns me on. It's attracted to the resonant host. So if you could not pull off the idea, it would never come to you because it's resonant. Ideas come that are resonant. Maybe somebody has some wild ideas, but they don't believe they could do it. I had to download a vision and I was shown this thing that I'm going to build. I was just like, what? Like, you've got the wrong address, people. Now I see how that address was actually correct, but I couldn't even see it then, that I was a resonant host. It's just I didn't believe that. So first of all, understand that the idea came to you for a reason. It knows that you can pull it off and it wants to live, which to me is the most exciting thing.
You've mentioned that the way that you make business decisions is to stop everything, sit, and wait for the answer to come through. How do you or how does one set themselves up to relieve insights and breakthroughs, even if perhaps maybe there's time constraints?
I wouldn't say I do all decisions. It also depends on my stress level, my resonance level. I recently created some more space for myself. I just went through a period of about 2 years of dissonance and really thought I could change the dissonance with my tools and on my mind. Here's the one who teaches about this that is in the most dissonant situation. I was in hell. That's why I moved. I hired someone to run my company. I had to literally crack that shell open energetically. So everything works out. The non-dual approach to the gift of the dark. Right now I have a big decision to make, and I'm not sitting in a physical space waiting for the download to happen. This is more sitting and waiting for the impulse for the next step to come. And that can sometimes be one of the most brutal places from a person that likes to take action. I want to go, my nature is to go, and then all of a sudden I don't feel an impulse, and it's like, okay, what do I do now? So I flip to more curiosity. I'm curious about the next step. I'm curious when I'll feel the next step. What I do know is I will have an impulse that will come through. So that again is not particular sitting, but it's also creating the internal space where I'm not so attached to the time, date, whatever. That's where I suffer. Can I be like, oh, okay, let's see. I woke up again today. I don't feel an impulse again. And sit with my own nervous system and my own anxiety about that, because I do get anxiety. The mind keeps going and there's not a clear direction yet. So with big decisions, I can do that. I just try to have patience with myself and know that everything has a time, everything has a season, and I will wake up one day and have that impulse. When that impulse comes, it's like a contraction in birth. There is this time when you want the pregnancy to be over, you want to be done. It's like, come on, come on, come on. You just keep being patient, and then one day you wake up and it's like, oh shit, we're giving birth. It's that same level of patience as knowing something's going to happen and you need to make a decision, but also being patient with the flow and the timing of when that perfect thing is. Because what I've known, if I don't have that impulse, and if I just make a move, everything is wonky. So what I'm talking about here is not that you can't take action when you think you need to. Oh, I want to do X, Y, Z. I can pick up the phone and start running right now. But I'm not working with the natural laws of the universe and the energetic flow. What I want to do is catch that flow like I do a surf wave. And that's why I wait for that impulse. It can feel like a long time in between waves. You're sitting there, you're out there, and you're kicking, and there's no waves. What you can absolutely be assured of is a wave will come. And then what happens is when that wave comes, that's when you start paddling like hell. So that's what I mean by taking the space and just kind of going, it's not time, it's not time, it's not time. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's go. When you do that, you have the natural energetic wave of the perfect timing.
Obviously, you're very successful in business and you're also deeply spiritual. How can we bring a spiritual dimension to entrepreneurship or our careers, especially if they don't seem spiritual in nature? And why is that important?
I think the biggest problem that we have with capitalism right now and what's going on in our world, it has a lot to do with us not remembering any sort of spirituality. If we were in touch with spirituality, I believe that different decisions would be made about the environment, about what we do. We'd be a lot more grateful and in tune. I believe that we are all spiritual. A farmer doesn't have to go to church or practice a religion to be spiritual. He understands the timing of the seasons. He understands how to work with the flow of what nature is giving him. That's a very spiritual experience. In business, I believe where we've gotten out of flow in spirituality is in Western civilization, and even me, sometimes even now, and for so many years, it's all about an outcome and about what things can give me versus how is this contributing to society? How does this entity want to live? How do these people within the entity want to live and exist? And what can we co-create together? Right there's a spiritual practice. versus team management, scheduling. Let's get all of our Slack and all of our Sauna and all the programs so that we can communicate. There's also these heady things, but really what we're doing is we are all getting together and we are co-creating and taking care of this incredible entity that is giving us life. It's serving us and we are serving it. That whole relationship is a very spiritual relationship, but we don't think about it that way. We get into lots of abuse of organizations, of people for our own betterment. That's where we get out of whack. I believe that if we could just remember the nature of why we're there, it doesn't have to be spiritual. It's like, why am I here? What is this organization doing? An organization or a corporation is by definition an entity. So if this is an entity that we consider an energetic being, what does that being need today? And that's what I try to do with Poo-Pourri. She's amazing. She's definitely very feminine. We often sit and I'll say, what does Poo-Pourri need? And then what is Poo-Pourri giving us? Yes, people have jobs and they're getting paid, but it's also serving a lot of their internal needs. When you have that level of respect, that's a spiritual process.
In a world where we hear nonstop that we need to hustle and grind to be successful, how do you recommend that we approach the doing, the receiving and the allowing, and the resting? And how do we know when we're in harmony and balance so that we don't have to worry about asking ourselves, oh, am I doing enough?
This is something that I've been experimenting with a lot, very transparently. When the pandemic first started and then people aren't working as much, we always had an organization where people were very dedicated. They worked a lot of hours and it's just what we did. We took care of the baby. It's like being a new mother. But we were a new mother for many, many, many years. So when the pandemic first started and everybody started cutting back on their hours, there's a natural, what's going to happen? Even I started cutting back on my hours. We did go through a rough phase in our business. Now that people are having more of their life back, I have more of my life back. It is becoming more resonant and it is balancing out. Let's go back to the surfer analogy. The surfer could try to make the wave. A surfer can be on the ocean and just be paddling like hell. You can paddle, but you're not going to make a damn wave. But when the surfer is there, and then all of a sudden they feel that wave coming, and then they start paddling, they go much further. There is a time for action and inaction. This whole thing I'm talking about, it's a very ninja kind of move here. You can get more done in less time. It isn't about time management. It is about following the flow of energy. It's the same thing with writing or any creative project. Every crop has to lie fallow. The problem in our monoculture of agriculture is we don't allow crops to rest. We don't allow them to go fallow, so therefore our soil's depleted. You have to have 1 or 2 seasons of the crop lying fallow to replenish the soil's nutrients, and then you can plant again. And that's the way farmers have always done it. But we don't allow anything to lie fallow because we've got to go and we've got to get ahead. Not that we aren't creating some energy, but we're burning ourselves out. We're tired, we're sick, we're working against the law and flow of nature. We're destroying the planet and ourselves. You do need to hustle, but you need to hustle at the right time. When you hustle at the not opportune time, you just spend more energy from yourself and everyone else around you rather than waiting for that flow. We just did a campaign that just came out, and I've been working on doing that for about 1.5 years. And they kept bringing me ideas. I'm like, no, it's not right. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, there it is. Okay, let's go. And then we went and it's doing awesome. Sometimes I can exhaust people around me by going, yeah, no, it's not right yet. It's not time.
You've previously talked about what resonance is and the 4 signs of it. In the context of starting a business, why does it matter if we are in resonance with the idea in the first place? Especially someone might tell themselves, hey, this is a good idea that can make a lot of money.
That was my question to Dr. Lipton. I said, it seems those logical decisions, the ones that, a donut shop would be great right here. There's not a donut shop, or a dry cleaner. There's not a dry cleaner within 5 miles. He said, because you're not working with this aliveness, you're not working with resonance, it doesn't mean it can't work. But what it means is it has to be exact. He gave the analogy of a math proof. Every single point has to be right or the answer is not there. It can be done. That's the reason the people that are highly analytical, strategic, intelligent can make things work in business. It's because they are so exact and precise, they don't miss a beat. Most of us don't have that luxury. If you didn't graduate from Harvard and didn't spend your entire life developing your strategic mind to not miss a beat, this is like business for the average person. If you want to be more successful, wait for that aliveness to come. People forget about this, and I forget about this. You have your idea and you think, oh, this is my idea, I have to do it all myself. But this idea is bringing 50% of the energy to the party. Therefore, your capacity's doubled when you wait for aliveness. You don't have that when you just go, oh, this would be a good idea. It could be a good idea, but it doesn't mean that you're working within that resonance. It's going to be more difficult. So it can happen. It's just harder. It's going to take more time, energy. Again, can the surfer make a wave? Possibly. He could certainly go somewhere, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be as easy, have the universal kind of energy behind you. If you did that, what happens is not only is there an alive business, but also you're more turned on. It's more turned on, and therefore everybody that enters the place is more turned on. I have never in my, knock on wood, 15 years heard anybody say anything bad about Poo-Pourri. Whenever I say I'm the CEO of Poo-Pourri, they just light up. Oh my God, I love that company. Well, you love the company because you love the resonance that it is and everyone inside it have. That's what you're loving. You're loving that energy. It's easier to market, it makes it easier to sell. So you can be successful. It's just a different approach and it's way tougher.
You've talked about your concept of an energetic blueprint. Can you tell us a brief definition of that and what it means to evaluate the energetic blueprint of something, such as a certain action that we take?
The energetic blueprint is the place from which something is birthed. I'll give you a story. I was doing a business deal with someone and we had an agreement. They had an idea for business and we had a 1 or 2 year contract. They were going to focus solely on the business agreement we had and they weren't going to pursue the other idea. It ends up that they didn't honor that agreement. They came to me and they wanted me to invest in their idea. I said, I would never invest in this idea because of the way in which it was born. It was birthed out of integrity, and I said it will never make it, which was a bold statement to these really smart people, like top in the industry smart. And they did it anyway. We parted ways, and they have been plagued with lawsuits the entire time. I'm not going to say that always happens, but that to me was the energetic blueprint. The blueprint was, I'm going to enter into this out of integrity. When it's out of integrity, that's in there, man. That's the foundation and that's the core. For that business to succeed would be a miracle, in my opinion. That's what I look at. How was it born? What was my state of being? What was everyone else's state of being whenever we tried to bring that to life? Was it because of competition? There's another story that I tell a lot about the auto unit. Somebody came to me and said, oh, I've got this automatic unit, and if you don't buy it, I'm going to go to your competition. I'm going to beat you. And I got scared. We spent, I think, 2 years. I can't even tell you how much time and energy. We knew it wasn't right. We ended up launching it. All of them broke. We had to bring all of them back, and we lost over $5 million hard cash, not counting the time, energy, and effort we put into it. We're still dealing with some of the aftermaths of that. The energetic blueprint was fear. I wanted to do one at some point, but I did it because I became scared. I dragged myself and my company through a lot with my own fear, even though they kept saying, hey, we're in struggle here. This isn't working. And I was like, no, we got to do it, because I just became scared, which is ridiculous.
How we can check in on ourselves in terms of when we need to be in that heads down and focus and grind versus when we are in dissonance or struggle. Is there a quick way to gauge that, to tell the energetic blueprint of?
Yeah, because this is an area that I still kind of like, am I avoiding this? Like writing. Writing is not a natural go-to for me. So I have to give myself space, sort of like a practice. Same thing with exercise. It's not my natural thing, but I know that I want to do it. So therefore, I have to get myself into a more resonant space to do that. But what I do is when I'm in the middle of something, I can go, stop, hold on, how am I feeling? Am I feeling alive and turned on, or am I just going through the motions here? And if I'm just going through the motions, I'll notice myself and kind of pull back and be like, you know what, I'm going to put this on my calendar and readdress this at another time. Unless it's something that's analytical. There are different things. Are we working creatively? Is this some new concept I need to come up with? Is this a major decision I need to make? If I need to look at the spreadsheet and this is a left brain function, then I can maybe go through that a little bit, but not an entire day of that. That's when the chunking comes in. Time management chunking, because I'm a sprinter. I sort of chunk things together so that I can just go. I just tune in and ask how I'm feeling. If I'm grumpy, irritable, complaining, mainly complaining, that's the number one trigger for me that I'm in dissonance.
If you had to name a few fundamental laws of how the universe works, and it kind of forms the foundation for how you function in the world, what would you say that those are?
That your external world is a reflection of your internal world. That what you see happening externally is a direct reflection of what's going on internally. Many years ago, I had this vision or download. I saw this shape and it looked like a donut. I saw it had like these little mirrors on the outside of it. I saw that what happens on the inside is directly reflected outside, all those mirrors. I had a quantum physicist tell me years later that those are actually fractals. They are mirror fractals. So the way to change your external environment is to go in and shift internally. That's number one. All the laws of Hermeticism. One that I think we forget about is the law of polarity. That we live in a state of duality. That's true based on science. The non-dual approach to that is not the denial of duality, it's the full acceptance of duality, acceptance of everything. If you look outside, we have seasons. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. You have light and you have dark. In our modern world, and even I sometimes get caught up in when you're in what you consider a painful time or a dark time, it's hard to stop and think of how this could be serving you. Instead, you're in pain. But really, when I look back over my life and I see the way energy flows and the way that it goes, it's like we're all going to have heartache, we're all going to have suffering, we're all going to have hard times. It's the acceptance of those hard times that make things shift. If you look at the scale of consciousness, what you'll see is that the kind of pivot point that I've really noticed and that he talks about is acceptance. What we consider the lower frequency emotions, with shame being at the bottom, shame, fear, all of those. When you go to acceptance, that's when it starts going up to the higher ones. So that's what I'm talking about. Non-duality is the full acceptance of duality. I will have good times. I will have hard times. I will have the whole gamut of everything. So those are probably the two biggest fundamental things that I practice. Mm-hmm. I just had a conflict happen with a friend that was so out of the blue, and I was just like, wow, what is that? And immediately I started going inside, going, what does this remind me of the past? How could I be creating this? I was victim for about 10 minutes, and I was like, hold on, if my external world's a reflection, what is this reflecting to me to see? So it's really just such a pattern in me now.
What is your process and mindset for prayer and communicating with the universe? I obviously know that you meditate, but what does that communication process look like for you?
I just built a spiral on my land here in California. I walk the spiral. I think prayer can be done in any situation or any form. As I'm making vegetables, I try to remember the vegetables that grew for me, the sunlight that gave to them, the farmers that brought them to the store or to the farmer's market so that I could get them. I think it's just little moments like that. It's more of a living, walking, breathing prayer than sitting down and actually praying to some deity or God. I don't know where my belief system is there. I do believe there's a higher power. I'm very spiritual. I don't particularly know what that is and don't know if I should spend a lot of time worrying about it other than knowing that there is something in the universe that seems to have my back and all of our backs and be very supportive. And that's enough for me to be thankful and grateful for.
What is money, and how can we set ourselves up to attract it?
You probably read many years ago, I thought I wanted to be a shaman. I went to the jungle and I said, I want to be a shaman. And they said, why? And I said, because I need to be helping people. And the shaman said that shamans move energy. They move energy in and out of the body. And money is just energy. And there's no greater catalyst for moving energy than being in business. So that's why I ended up staying in business. So money is energy. It's really not even real. It's kind of funny. Sometimes I sit and think, oh, the number of straight lines and circles that I have in this supposed bank account means something. It's just kind of funny when you really look at it. It's like these little things that you don't even have, you don't even see it. It's some ethereal, abstract substance that means something. So number one, it's just energy. Number two, it is your birthright. Abundance is your birthright. You can just go out and sit with a tree, look at a tree for an entire season, watch how its leaves all drop, and then watch how the leaves all come back and grow. It gets what it needs from the environment, from the sunshine. So I believe that it is our birthright, and money happens to be a part of that in our society. Where it gets tricky is that people believe that money is going to get you something. I spent the past year mourning success, looking at what success has cost me from my relationships, from my time. I'm 58. I put 15 years in this. 15 years. It's a lot of someone's life, especially when you start getting older and realize, oh wow, there's a expiration date at some point on this. I've spent a lot of time really crying and mourning. We believe that money's going to get us something. I will tell you, I've come to full circle from what people consider, from having none to having what people consider a lot. And the only difference in me with money is that I have a little bit more ease in my life. And that's about it. And as a matter of fact, I've come the opposite. In Dallas, I live in a 15,000 square foot, big ass property. It takes so many people to take care of. Here, I live in a little 1,500 square foot house. I go to the farmer's market. I get my own groceries. I've really gone back to the things that I thought I wanted all these people doing for me. I've gone back to simplicity and to roots and just wanting to live where money doesn't mean anything anymore. It's a farce, I will tell you. Whenever I first got on the Forbes list, I cried for like 4 hours. Have you ever seen those people, go across a race and they collapse at the finish line? Well, the point is, I didn't even know I was in a race. It was my big wake-up call to, what the fuck have you been doing? You've been on this race your entire life. It wasn't even just the business race. I have been on this massive race. Even though I talk about flow and energy, I had no idea how fast at the pace I was going. I was duping myself. When I recently have stopped most things, I've gone back to simplicity, to smallness, to doing my own dishes, to washing my own clothes. I know that sounds crazy, but I thought that's what I wanted, is someone to clean my house and making sure everything's tidy and amazing. What I realized is I wasn't living life. I was living some very adrenalized version of something where I wasn't connected back even with myself. The search for money and the quest for money is a very tricky carrot that even when you get it, aren't going to want it for very long. Then it can also become a burden. The law of polarity, what are you going to do with it? I don't like to say this because I'm coming from a very entitled place, but even it comes with its own complexities that you don't think about. You got to keep it, you got to make it grow, but then you got to give it away. There's a lot of rules around money that people don't think about. They just think, I just want a lot of money, I want to be rich. You get rich and then all of a sudden you're going, okay, this isn't it. What is it? It's not that. I'll tell you, it's not that. One of the things I've been realizing is I wanted to be rich or successful to be loved. The reason I want to be loved is because I want connection, right? So the reason I had the morning is because for 15 years, I'm trying to get this thing that I think is going to give me more connection, when actually for 15 years I had less connection. So I could have just went to get what I actually value. I didn't have to be successful to have what I actually truly desire, which is connection. So with that, I have talked with all my children. I said, get your 5 values that you have for your family and your life. And then any opportunity that comes up, you can go, does it get me towards that or does it not? No one sat me down to do that, because if they did, there's so many things that got me away from connection. This is the reason I know it's not processed. I'm still grieving. I won't get that time back with my children. I won't. I had a very hard woman in New York, very New York. I mean, I haven't been around a woman with such a shell in a long time. She ran several magazines. Finally, she broke open a little bit and she said, I have 2 small children. What would you recommend? And I told her the story. And I said, you can't have it all. You can't. There's just no way. Everything costs something. And just ask yourself, am I willing to sacrifice this to get that? Those are the decisions we really have to make, especially as women. I haven't lived in a male body in this lifetime, but I think it's the same, because then you're going to find yourself on a pile of shit you created and going, that wasn't even what I wanted in the first place. And that kind of sucks too. I need to get back to my roots. When if we could just start with our roots. So I've been telling women, a few people I mentor, stop scaling. Scaling for what? Before my viral video, I was only doing like $8 million a year. I think I was clearing like $1 million or $2 million bottom line. I was spending like 10 weeks a year on Maui. Like, I had the life. And then all of a sudden I'm like, we gotta go. It's just been nonstop ever since. And I'm like, hold on, I actually had the life back then. I had the life I wanted back then. And then what I did is traded the life I wanted, because I thought if I was going to push, I was going to get more of the life I wanted, but instead I was getting a life that I actually didn't want. Can I go back to the life I actually wanted?
How can we allow ourselves to create from a place of freedom and desire and for the mere joy of it without being tied to a monetary outcome, especially if we truly do need to improve our financial circumstances, without being tied to some kind of financial payout, especially if we really truly need to improve our income and make more money, etc.
When people go through Alive OS, people ask me, I've got 2 kids, I've got to pay the rent, what do I do? And I tell them to get into a more resonant position. Maybe they can change their position within their same company, where they can still pay the rent and then start pursuing your side passion project on the side. That's what I'm doing right now in my life. Keep the lights on, Poo-Pourri's running, but I know that I'm transitioning. You will see something in the next couple of years. I feel it, it's happening, it's already happening, but I still have responsibilities. And I asked my mentor this question: what if I don't want to go in? What if I literally don't want to go into the office? And he said, I found that I always feel better when I take care of my responsibilities. The only thing we really have to do on this earth is take care of ourselves. Now, when you bring other people into the world, you need to take care of them too. What you need to figure out is how to take care of yourself. And then you can follow your passion or your heart on the side until those two can merge. Not until then. I've got my day job and I'm still doing this at night. Lots of people are doing that. It's a transition piece. It seems like duh, but what we don't realize is you are doing it to move out of dissonance into something more resonant for you, where you can be turned on and live with the work that you want to do. Also, you have to be willing to sacrifice. Everything is an equal exchange. And the only question that I advise you to really think about is, what am I willing to pay for this? And if that job is truly dragging you down to where you are miserable and come home and you're so depressed you can't work on that side project, then get yourself into a more resonant position where you can still take care of your responsibilities as you transition into this new thing, knowing it's a transition period. It's a pregnancy. You don't just say, I'm going to have a baby. Boop, baby. There's 9 months. There's a cycle. But you know that you're moving towards that. So as long as you know that, I believe that you can do both. But you have to be really clear and get yourself into a more resonant position as much as possible before you start working on that side thing that's going to light you up and that's going to give you more energy. I'm saying all the same thing. Everything's energy. Hop on it, ride on it, pay attention.
So we both love The Game of Life and How to Play It, one of my favorite books. why do you believe that life is a game, and what is the object of the game? And how do we trust and allow ourselves to actually play the game of life, especially when maybe the outside world seems so grim?
Yeah, it's so fun. What I'm going to be doing in the future is showing people more of this. Life is a game of energy. That's what Flosko was saying. I read that book like 16 years ago, before I started Poo-Pourri. I knew where success was. It's inside. Life is a game of energy. We are energetic beings. We are living in an energetic universe, and there are energies at play that we can see and not see. Once you understand that, then you can start working with energies in a playful, in a game-like way. The same way in Monopoly, it's not your turn until it's your turn. Then once your turn, you roll the dice and you see what happens. And then you move the little thing going. And then you can buy the property, you can not buy the property, and then you can win or lose. That's exactly what it is in this life. It is a game of energy. It's like, oh my God, this is happening to me. This is darkness. Woe is me. My life is shit. And all of a sudden, you start alchemizing that. You can go, okay, now that I've got that, maybe I could trade a piece over here. Life happens, and we get into the yin yang of the world, duality, and we go into a dark place. And then we come out of it and we're like, oh my God, I learned so much. Here's what I can do now. You're riding the next wave. It's just all energy. If you keep remembering and staying in that dark place, you're not going to move on the board. You know those people that have been stuck in that same place? The high school football player that's still telling you about that one pass he made when they won the game? Dude, it's been 24 years. He's stuck in the game. He had moved on the board. So once we can learn to start alchemizing these energies, work with these energies, and start flowing with it, we can start moving around the board and playing, and it becomes so much more exciting. You take things so much less personal, and in my experience, you have a hell of a lot more fun. That's when it becomes game-like. So when I say life is a game, I don't believe it's a physical game that you have to master and play. It can be a playful game of energy if you so choose it.
So how do we allow ourselves to test that theory that life is a game and move into that mindset?
Well, what I take people through in AliveOS. Okay, first of all, I have people go through, and we do a section called Harvest. We do a week of harvesting. I want you to harvest everything that you think was shitty in your entire life and write it all down. Now, look at any amount of good that came out of it. What did you learn? How'd you grow? Right there, that's already alchemizing the past. It's kind of taking the sting out of it. Oh, hold on. Maybe things do start working out for me. Maybe life is for me, not always against me. Then start clearing out all the clutter in your life. This is energy. I cleaned out my closets. I cleaned up my email. I feel so much better. I feel lighter, of course, because you're removing density and energy. Then let's talk about dissonance. Let's talk about areas in your life where you don't feel lit up and turned on. They start moving away from friends. They start finding other jobs. They start moving away from relationships. So many people get divorced. At first, I was like, hold on, people. What I finally realized is this has been brewing for a long time. But you start going towards more resonance, and then what happens is naturally you start going, hold on, I don't feel good doing that. I feel good doing that. That's the way you start playing with it. It's really that simple. Someone very close to me is getting divorced. And she's taken AliveOS 3 times. Every time she said, I think I'm going to have to leave my husband. She didn't leave him. And then something kind of catastrophic happened, a bunch of drama. Once you become aware of these situations and of these things, you need to make a change, because if you don't, the universe will change it for you. Because we're expanding and growing. And that's how you start playing with energy and realizing it works. When you do those simple things, look in the past, what happened, made it good. Clear up all of your agreements, make all the amends you need to. It does that for a reason. It really cleans things up energetically. Scan your body. Is there anything I haven't said, haven't spoken? Start moving away from dissonance. Start moving towards resonance. And then you are playing the energy game. And you will notice a difference. 100% guaranteed.
You've been through some horrific traumas, being molested as a child, attempting suicide, to bankruptcies, all before starting the business that made you this huge success. How to alchemize even the most harrowing of circumstances, as opposed to feeling consumed by them. Or even put more simply, how do we release shame or trauma?
I teach something that I call the Trinity of Transformation. It's working on 3 different planes. It's the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. With trauma, I believe that we have to address it on 3 different planes. The physical plane is, number one, we need to get out of the trauma. If we're in an abusive situation, we have to get out. We have to go to the psychological, what made me get there in the first place? Why did I do that? And the spiritual, how is this for my good, and what is the lesson for me to learn here? The only way that I found to permanently move forward from these things that we call trauma is to address those on all 3 planes. What happens is most people don't do all 3. I'll tell you an example. I've given advice to a friend that's a very well-known motivational speaker that was getting sued by big time attorneys for something that was false, but I told her, you need to look at all 3 of these planes. The physical, you hired the best attorneys you can get. Most people stop right there. That's not it. The psychological plane is, how the hell did I get here in the first place? What does this remind me of the past? I said, go back, scan, I guarantee it. This has been building. And then the spiritual, what's the purpose of all this? And then she wrote me back a few days later. She gave a list of 16 incidences where that same energy had been showing up, building up to this big boom for her to see. She worked on it with psychologists. She worked on it with everything. She looked at the spiritual aspect, and then the lawsuit was dropped. But you can only do it, in my experience, when you have addressed all 3 areas. When you do that, it's alchemized.
How do we both forgive ourselves and others and let go?
Let's go back to harvesting. There's a thing in the spiritual world that is so Pollyanna that they skip. In the harvesting, we are doing a real assessment, a real being grateful for that experience. What I suggest you do is go into some sort of therapy, EMDR, hypnosis, or body-centered somatic therapy, to start working on the psychological plane to find out how you were doing that, to stop recreating this pattern, because it is a pattern, it is a groove that will continue. There is a thing in the spiritual world where people are like, oh, this is just all for my good. It's all for my good. It's all happening for me. No. You missed a big ass step. Diving into it, really wringing out that shit, composting it, and then turning it into fertilizer. You don't just throw it out in the garden and start growing plants. I see that a lot. Think positive. It's like, yes. And there's a process with trauma and shame that you need to go into and feel and honor, and then it will naturally have life coming up.
How do we then let go?
My experience is I can't just let go. I wish I could. I can beat myself up about not letting go. When I go through and do these steps, I naturally let go. I don't have to force my hand off it. And then forgiveness ensues. Oh, okay, this is a part of my being. The reality is, I would not change one single thing in my life that I've done to others, that people have done to me, if I was not guaranteed the position internally I am right now. It's all worth it. That's 100% true, because I love the space that I am inside myself, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I'd take all the bad, what we consider bad. That process of forgiveness is a natural evolution of having worked through it so much that you are completely at peace.
How can we find the highest purpose or meaning in life that is meant for us? Do we all have a purpose and a destiny?
Byron Katie used to say, what if your purpose is sitting right here, right now, in this moment? Isn't that nice? What if this is it? It's pretty sweet when you really sit in the spot. Oh, this is wonderful. I get connecting with Jared. He's amazing. I think purpose can be another carrot. In my experience, it's another carrot. I have to find my purpose in the world. What if my purpose is just as I exist, doing the dishes, every Zen master in the world, chop the wood, carry the water? I believe that that can be an ego trap, that I have to fulfill my purpose. I go back to leaning more towards having been on that pursuit for a long time and then failed at it. Back to where Byron Katie taught me 20 years ago, that what if my purpose is just right here, talking to you, and that's it. Then I can feel complete. It's like, oh, I fulfilled my purpose. Jared and I had this conversation. This book is happening. That's great. That feels good. Nothing else to do.
It's
Okay.
pretty good. Yeah.
My purpose has been fulfilled.
You've mentioned that we're born with an authentic vibration that we're all just trying to get back to. What does that mean and why does it matter?
I think this is part of the game. It's a game of hide and seek. Every spiritual seeker ever will tell you the whole purpose is so that you can reclaim parts of yourself. We go through life experiences, those sort of impact our being. When we are in dissonance with our past, when we haven't alchemized it properly, that's where dis-ease comes in. That's how we know something's off. Then we can go back and start reclaiming those parts of ourselves or going back to those parts of ourselves that we lost. It's all by design. I believe that's what we're doing. That's our evolution, is merely to get back to, and actually that's even a fallacy because you already are that. You're just not aware of it. So it's less about having to reclaim and bring it back because it's gone. It's more about uncovering so that it can actually come through and shine, as if a piece of you could be lost. There you go.
You also recommend that one should be the fullest and most outrageous expression of who they are that they can be. How can people get clear on that version of themselves as opposed to conditioning and being told who they are, etc., and give themselves permission to boldly explore it?
I think through the process we're saying, go through and move yourself out of dissonance. A family member that's close to me is where they're supposed to be in their career and they're doing a big deal in the world. They're acting in a movie and they were like, I'm not even scared. You're not scared in resonance. There's no room for fear. You're just digging on the energy. The energy is digging on you. It's a love affair. When you meet that perfect match, fear can come in every once in a while, but generally speaking, you're in such a state of resonance, there's no room. You're turned on. So I would do those simple processes. Start alchemizing your past. Start healing that with the Trinity of Transformation. Those parts that are really tripping you up, identify those patterns. Get out of those, start moving away from dissonance, start moving into more resonance. And the more and more you're in resonance, the more you'll be in that state all the time. And you don't even have to worry.
Are there any final tips or recommendations of how we move ourselves into resonance?
By moving away from dissonance, and depending on the level of dissonance, sometimes we have to make pretty abrupt. It's the chick inside the egg. It goes, there's a new world out there. There's something out there. I have no idea what it is. But what I know is I got to break this damn thing. I got to break this apart so that I can enter into a new phase. Sometimes it has to be that drastic. It doesn't always. It could be a slow move in. You need to get really first clear with what is dissonant in your life. When you can identify dissonance, then you will naturally start moving into more resonance.
How do we embody that we're actually worthy of our dreams and desires and allow ourselves to go for them?
This whole thing, not worthy, that's so funny. I heard Alan Watts say this is the biggest ego trip. It really is. I'm so insignificant, I don't matter. It's the same thing as saying I'm so significant. How could you not be worthy? Are you not worthy of a breath you're taking? The air's there, you're taking it. Do you have to ask the air, am I worthy of this? You're just doing it, right? You're just like, okay, the air's there for me. Yeah. Everything that you express and then all the returns of that expression, you have to be worthy of or you wouldn't be getting it.
You wouldn't be having those dreams and desires if you weren't worthy of it?
Yeah. Even the rewards of those, if you weren't worthy, you wouldn't be sitting on that pile of wonderful shit you created. You are worthy. Again, that's just another ego trip. Just stop it. You're worthy. You were born worthy. I believe that is where traditional religion has really, I believe, set us off on a path. Like you were born a sinner. Really? What new child have you ever seen that was a sinner? You're born tainted. The religious work is the most difficult work that I've done. I believe that those belief systems are where that comes from. If you look at any indigenous community of people, that's not even a concept. They don't say they're not worthy of the deer that they caught today, or the air that they're breathing, or the sun that they have, or the plants that are growing. It's a Western mind fuck. Just stop it.
What is your process for befriending and talking to your fears, and how can we turn those fears into allies?
I recently went through this very intimately last year. My company was struggling. I really had to face some stuff inside of me. It wasn't struggling to the extent that it was struggling in my mind. One thing fear can do is become very large very quickly. Something that Gay taught me. I remember asking him, "What do you do with fear?" He said, "First, you need to look at reality. Look around and see, is there something I truly need to be scared of? For example, if it's financial. Oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. And then I'm going to be worthless and nobody's going to love me and I'm never going to get that connection I desire." You call the accountant or look through the books. You look at your checking account. You look at reality very closely. Is there any basis for this fear? Because there could be. It could be like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. My second bankruptcy was from being in denial. So that's what I mean by that Pollyanna, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. I can just use my mind to get out of it. That's bullshit. Okay, there is a place where you need to look at reality and take inspired right action to right a wrong, or, to correct the ship. If there's nothing that you are truly creating that fear, then that is just a concept within your mind. And then you can deal with that. I don't know if you have to make friends with it, but what I would do is say, when was the first time I had this fear? What does it remind me of in the past? And I would go back as far as I can. Then I would do EMDR, hypnosis, or somatic therapy on that psychological plane to address that. And then I would look at the whole spiritual thing. The spiritual thing is where Gay comes in and says, oh, hell, that's an upper limit, right? It's like, oh, I expanded so much. Then I started contracting because of the level of expansion I was at. So then you can start playing with those energies, but only through that process. The physical, is there anything I need to look at that I really need to be looking at here? The psychological, wow, how did I create that? Where did I first hear about that? And then the spiritual, what the hell was all that about? Once you do that, and then you're complete. And then fear becomes just another thought.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening or watching. I'm going to be putting these interviews out in a few different areas, and wherever you find it, wherever is easiest, please like, share, subscribe, comment, etc. I welcome any and all of your feedback, or feel free to reach out to me directly on my website at jaredgold.com, jaredgold.com, whether you might want to collaborate on an interview or me hosting a show, or if you look through my past work experience and my skills, seeing other ways we can collaborate. I'd love to hear it. Thanks so much, and looking forward to sharing more of these interviews.